How to with two, scheduling. I really love using this. This is probably the video that will get the most hits. I hope so. For the simple reason that this topic is what will consume you for the next, I would say, 5 years of your life with kids. Jump on the crazy parent train! So, where to begin? You are now responsible for 2 or more kids, and you have to make sure that they eat enough and that they sleep enough. Wow. So where do you even begin, right? In our case, I did some research, talked to some friends, and a name that kept coming up was Tracy Hogg, the baby whisperer. I could have kept researching, but I figured I would just trust people that I knew, people had gone through it before me, and my research, and check it out. I did not read this whole book. That would be a lie. But I did read the chapters on sleeping and feeding. My daughter, who was in the NICU those first few days after birth, was on a strict 3-hour schedule. So that meant every 3 hours she was feeding, either on formula, breastfeeding, or pumped milk. I decided that I would put my son on that same schedule so that they were, by the time we got home, they would hopefully be on the same schedule. So about 15 to 20 minutes before I knew I was going to the NICU, I would feed my son, change him, pass him on to my husband, and then I would go to the NICU to do the same thing with my daughter. When we got home, we kept doing that same routine. So for Tracy, she came up with an acronym for this routine, and it's called E.A.S.Y. Eat, Activity, Sleep, You. Simply. What it means is you feed your child, you do some sort of activity, I'll get into that, you put them to bed for a nap or bedtime, and then you enjoy some you time. For the first 2-3 months, I religiously logged everything we did every 3 hours. At 6 a.m., I recorded whether there was a pee or poo. I recorded whether they breastfed, drank formula, or drank pumped milk, and if it was breastfeeding, which boob it was, so that I could switch them on the next feed, and if they had a top-up after that, how much I gave them. It was 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., midnight, and the ungodly hour of 3 a.m., the witching hour. My husband and I tried to stick to this routine and to the schedule as much as possible. What you may find is that when you talk to your friends, parents of singletons, they might be doing the feeding on demand, which means when your baby cries, you assume that they're hungry, you feed them, give it a shot. That sounded like a nightmare to me, to feed 2 kids who were constantly demanding at any given time. I knew that I couldn't do that, and that I would try as hard as possible to stick to a scheduled routine. Give or take trying to read the kid to see if they actually wanted to eat or if there was something else that they needed. Honestly, I wanted to feel like I had some control of the situation and not constantly just in their nursery feeding them and feeling like a milk factory, even though that's kind of what you are. As an example, about a month after they were born, I still kept writing 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, but then I made note if there was a slight time change based on maybe they just weren't hungry at 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. Why won't you just eat? Please just eat. Instead of 6, it was 7. Instead of 9, it was 10. Instead of 12, it was 12:30. Instead of 3, it was 3:15, etc., etc. But again, it was always the same routine. Eating, activity, sleeping, you. In those first few months, eating simply means eating, breastfeeding, formula feeding them with the bottle. Really, guys, it's just as easy as that, so I don't know what you're complaining about. Said no one ever. Activity, because you're still learning how to breastfeed or feed your child, and your child is doing the same in return, trying to learn off you. Eating and activity is sort of one and the same. After you feed them, you burp them, you change them, and that's the activity. I always figured that, they'd be more comfortable in a clean pair of diapers before they took a nap. What I would do with the sleeping is, if one of them woke up before the other, and typically that was my daughter, I would take her out of her crib and take her into bed with me, or just sit on the rocking chair with her so that my son could continue to sleep. Because the idea was that I didn't want to feed her too far in advance of my son. I really wanted to get them eating and doing everything at the same time. Fun for them, I'm sure. The you time. You time is really just taking a break, taking a breather, going out for a 5-minute walk while someone else stays at home, maybe taking a nap yourself, doing some dishes. Everyone always says, take that time for you, but it's ridiculous. If you're anything like me, knowing that there's stuff to be done makes me stressed. So I actually feel like I relieve stress by putting a load of laundry in, or just putting the dishes away. That to me is somewhat relaxing. I always at least took a nap at the 12 nap time. So that was in the midday. I felt like that was a good time to nap. I was really militant, very, very militant about the 3-hour schedule. And some people, friends, family, they have to understand that this is just the way it goes. This is how it's going to work at your household, and they're just going to have to work around it. And just the same, if your friends have a certain way of doing things, you have to respect that, because at the end of the day, they have to stay home with their kids and they have to stay sane. So that's how it works. You may find yourself doing the same thing, and you don't have to make excuses for it. You are feeding 2 or more kids at the same time. It goes without saying that you do what you need to do. I have given you permission. It's funny because when I think about it, like trying to give you some sense of how it worked for me, like it seems so easy just to look at this book and say, 6, 9, 12, every 3 hours. But really, there was a lot more to it. There was the frustrations whenever one baby didn't eat as much as the other one, when one slept more than the other, or one slept less. It'll be really hard to get past the fact that even though they were born at the same time, they are 2 different people. In the early months, my daughter always woke up earlier from her naps and had a harder time feeding, and my son slept amazing, drank amazing. And now as toddlers, my daughter has a healthy appetite and my son is a picky eater. So they're always changing. Now as toddlers, we still do pretty much the same routine, maybe even subconsciously. Like, I'm not as strict about it, but it's still the same thing. They wake up in the morning, we have breakfast, we play around, we're getting ready to either go to work, bring them to their grandparents or to daycare, and then they have their midday nap, and then they can sleep anywhere from an hour to 3 hours if they're super tired. During that nap time, that's your you time. And then the same thing happens again. They wake up, you give them a snack, play around. At that point, it becomes E.A.S.Y, I think, because they'll have a mid-afternoon snack, and then they'll play around. You have dinner, maybe hang out as a family for a little bit before you do your bedtime routine, and then it's bedtime. I hope this information is helpful. I will be sure to do another video that has more to do with toddlers, because that's the stage I'm at right now. But if you have any questions or comments, please comment below. And if you haven't, please subscribe or check out another one of my videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.